We're going to start with chapter 22, verse 8. Chapter 22, verse 8. If a person builds, when you build a new house, you have to make a roof, a fence for your roof. Do not put blood in your, so that you do not have blood on your household. Meaning to say, if you don't have a fence around your roof, then you'll have blood on your household. The person will fall off. Yeah. Yeah. So did you hear that, Ben? Were you able to hear that? Okay. So Jeff Burt said that Rabbi Mintz was an expert on OSHA. In fact, he founded OSHA. First director of OSHA. OSHA is the Office of Safety and Health, and he put on his book this verse, the first page. Well, we had around 50 copies of that book when we came into the yeshiva. Well, I figured if the family didn't take them, then we don't have to keep them. So, no, you can get them, but not here. You can get them off of Amazon. Yeah, no, it's a beautiful edition. So now, what does OSHA stand for? So the Occupational Health and Safety Administration is directly influenced by this pasuk. So okay, beautiful. So when you build a new house, you make a fence. Rashi says this is following the previous paragraph, which is that before you take the mother bird, before you take the eggs or the chicks, you have to send away the mother bird. So Rashi connects the two. He says, Im kiyamta mitzvahs shiluach hakein. If you fulfill the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird, so of knows bias chadash. In the end, you'll build a new house, utekayin mitzvahs maka, and you'll fulfill the commandment of making a fence. She mitzvah goreres mitzvah. One mitzvah leads to another mitzvah. V'tagia l'kerem v'sad, and then you'll arrive at the next mitzvah, which is verse 9 and 10, of having a vineyard and a field. And then gadim na'im, and then the next mitzvah, which is the mitzvah of shatnes on verses 11 and 12. So all of these are connected. When you do a mitzvah, that's where Rashi says all these mitzvahs are connected. So this is Rashi's explanation. I want to say, well, we'll just say the next Rashi, ma'akeh fence, gader saviv lagag. This is a fence around the roof. And Unclos translates it as a tiyaka, as a bag, like a tik shemishamer masha b'tocho, like a bag. Yeah, so it's a protective guarding around the fence, around the roof, to make sure you don't fall off. I should point out that it doesn't mean only a roof. If you have any elevated portion in your household, like let's say you have a porch that's a few feet off the ground, then you are required to put a fence around it so people don't fall. One time I came to somebody's house, they were showing me their house. Is a very nice man, is a big tzaddik, I don't want to say anything about it, but they live in this area, and they were showing me their house, and I said, that porch, it's elevated, you really required by Jewish law to put a fence around it. I just mentioned it. Then, like a year later, he was having a Shalom Zachar, and I went on a Friday night, and we were all on the porch, and I leaned back, and I fell off the porch. So I was fine, but the point is that literally you need to have a fence, not just around your roof, but any elevated structure. In those days, they used their roofs as like yards. So that's why you're required to have a fence around the roof, because people are on it. But if it's an area where people don't go, then you're not required to have a roof if nobody goes up there. Like on our roof over here, no one goes on here, so we don't have to put a fence on it because nobody goes on our roof except for, it's a worker to make sure it doesn't leak.
Right. So that's why is it that you need to do a roof back then? People climb on roofs.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, that the roofs back then were courtyards. What? Yeah, they were flat roofs. They were things that
Steinsaltz
people
says
used.
that Steinsaltz says that they used them for living space, so it was prevented from somebody from falling off. They actually lived on the roofs, is what
Yeah,
Steinsaltz says. The other
yeah.
thing that he adds also is that not only is it not a place like a porch, like you said, but and I assume you this is something you know, but it comes from Bava Kama, where it says that if there's anything danger in the house, like a dangerous ladder or a belligerent dog, all these things are sort of the same thing.
Right. Well, so exactly. That's what I wanted to mention also that in a literal sense, very excellent, Seth. In a literal sense, this refers to putting a fence around your roof. But the the thrust of the commandment is that you're responsible if you have dangerous things in your home.
And that's what OSHA was about.
Yeah, and that's what Rabbi Mintz was dedicated a portion of his life to, making sure that his worker safety is not directly underneath this because it's a little different. If you're a worker and you want to, like, you can do certain jobs which are dangerous because you know the risks. Like, for example, the job of policeman is inherently dangerous, and you're doing that job because you're the noble cause. Or let's say, building a bridge or building a skyscraper is a very dangerous job, and people accept it upon themselves. So, like, you're able to do. There are jobs which people are able to do.
Until OSHA came along, the industry didn't have any federal.
There was no standard.
No standard, so if you cut wood, there was no protection. You just let the wood and
And we haven't rolled back any of those standards.
well, I think they've cut the budget.
Okay, we'll bring it up. We'll bring it up with the folks we know. Okay, so fine. Right. Okay, so it says ki po, and so do you have to make a bracha when you build this fence? Do you have to build a fence, or can you ask your non-Jewish contractor to build a fence? These are some of the questions that are discussed about it. Is the fence have to be made, or is it a mitzvah for you specifically to build it? These are questions that arise. Okay, so because the one who falls off of him, he's always there. He can't fall off. Nevertheless, even though Rashi says this guy who falls was supposed to die, because he says the one who falls will fall. Meaning, say Rashi says he's supposed to die. But don't gonna come through you. Mean to say, even though these things, everything happens according to God's plan, it doesn't have to come through you. It could have come through somebody else. You could be the one to help the guy win the lottery, and the other person could be the one to cause this person to fall off the roof. So you should be that one.
But it shouldn't be on your conscience.
What?
But it says, Scripture says that you build a fence to protect him, to ensure that his punishment comes about through not coming.
Right, not through you, not through you. Okay, so now we come to the next commandment. You're not allowed to sow in your vineyard kilayim. Pentikdash amwaya zera. Lest you set apart the growth of seed asher tizra that you plant utfuas akarm and the produce of the vineyard. Rashi says, what is koyim? Chita usaora v'chartzan b'mapolas yad. It would be wheat and barley, or wheat or barley, and grape seeds in the throwing of a hand. Meaning to say, the pasuk is forbidding sowing grapes with any two other species of grain or vegetables. Rashi says, using wheat and barley is just an example. So the verse in Vayikra forbids sowing with any combination species, but our pasuk is adding an additional prohibition to a combination which includes grape seeds. Now, there are how many types of kilayim are there?
Hundreds.
No, I'm saying there are categories. Kilayim is a forbidden mixture. So how many types of forbidden mixtures are there? So there are 5 There are 5. There's kilei akerem, which is the forbidden mixture of the vineyard. There's koyim of fruits and vegetables, like we said, koyim of different mixed seeds together of vegetables. Hello, Moshe. That's in Leviticus 19:19. There's the koyim we're going to get to now, which is wool and linen together. Moshe, we're in chapter 22 of Devarim, verse 9. And then there are koyim, you're not allowed to work 2 animals together that are different, and you're not allowed to mate 2 different species together. So those are the 5 different types of koyim. But the kilei akerem is the one that's prohibited to have any benefit. So this is the one that you're not allowed to have any benefit from it.
Rabbi.
Yeah, Seth.
They I'm just this is I don't know if this is a stretch, but with the mixing of seeds and fruits, there are a lot of things that have been created these days and blended. How does that factor into all this? Or is it just a prohibition of specific, like we know what the grape, not mixing grapes, etc.?
No, first of all, it's an amazing question. So kolayim is not just the grapes, but also like mixing 2 different seeds together to make like a new species. But like, for example, what's a tangerine? But is it an orange and what's a tangerine from? An orange and a clementine or something? I don't know.
Sure.
What?
Sure, it's not separate.
No, it's a kolayim. Hold on. It's a orange. Tangerine is what? Anyway, I know. Here. It's a hybrid of mandarin and pomelo. Okay, anyway, so those things, you're not allowed to do the initial one, but you're allowed to benefit from it, and you're allowed to eat them once it's done, no problem. But the grape seeds, you're not allowed to even benefit from it. And also the kolayim of the fields, you can't allow them to exist. You have to take them apart. There's a dispute in the Talmud. If it's in existence, you have to tear it down. That's a dispute in the Talmud. But they asked Rav Elyashiv, blessed memory, about cloning. And he said cloning really comes from the same prohibition of kolayim. He was against it. He said it's like you're playing God, which I don't really understand, as I think it's all science, is just basically science progressing. But he felt that the concept of kolayim was to prohibit us from extending human ingenuity too far. So I guess that's the deeper symbolic message we could take for ourselves today, is that there should be limits on human ingenuity. But it's very hard to apply it practically speaking, because human ingenuity is so important for us for medicinal purposes, for personal satisfaction. But it's a warning. It's a warning about it. Otherwise, there are a lot of sociological attempts and rabbinic attempts to explain the prohibition for kolayim, and they're all short. They all are lacking. So it's difficult. That's one of the laws which is usually said to be a chok, that we don't understand it. I'm sorry for cutting you off, Jeff.
Rabbi Steinfeld addressed cloning. He said, what's wrong with it? Not so much a religious objection. It's boring.
Cloning?
Cloning is because you're just creating another identical human being. And that's not the way.
Well, Rabbi Shalom is a great man, far beyond anything I could imagine. But first of all, we could say about that there's also cloning all organs, which is certainly not boring.
He wasn't addressing that.
But even cloning a human being, you're not going to be the same if you're raised in different. You're never going to be the same. It's impossible, because even if you're made from the same cells, it'll actually be very interesting, because you once you breathe, you're breathing in somebody else's cells. You're breathing and you're growing in a different area. So.
I think what he was saying is that God made us to be creative.
For sure.
Activity associated with a new human being.
Well, that goes back to Steve Jobs' idea that life is that death is life's change agent. And if it's just the same people perpetuating themselves, I'll tell you one story. Hold on one second. I'll tell you one story. This story is as follows, that in Israel, if you have a certain number of kids, they'll I guess they know how to like change the gender in utero. So they I don't know, or maybe they allow you to have IVF to pick the gender.
Yeah,
Yeah, so my friend has 4 girls, and they offered to pay for him to pick the gender. So he said to them, "You mean you're going to pay for me to have a 5th girl?" Okay, fine. Lo tachrosh, next pasuk.
Before you go off
Yeah.
that, what actually is the halachic thing if about picking gender? Can you or can't you? Because it's a mitzvah to have a boy and a girl, right? So I'm just wondering.
That's a great question.
I thought it was directed.
I don't know. You mean, are you saying, should you, to fulfill the mitzvah of Pru or Revu, if you already have a boy, should you do it to have a girl so that you can fulfill the mitzvah? I never thought of that question. I never heard anybody ask that. I never thought of it. And I'm certainly not pretending that I know the actual halacha here. But it seems to me, if they have the cells already and they are able to determine it, and you could choose either a boy or a girl, that you should fulfill the mitzvah by choosing the one you don't have. That was what seemed to me. But I never actually thought about that. It's a great
Isn't
question.
the act of making a choice, that's exactly playing God, right? Why is it any choice of yours?
I don't know that that's accurate because everything is our choice. Like the act of deciding to have a child is choice. The act of IVF is choice. When you decide to do IVF, that's choice. The act that you're choosing cells, like let's say you have cells and they say, oh, don't take this cell, don't take this one for the IVF because this one looks like it's broken already. So don't take that one, it doesn't look healthy. So then if they could say, take this one, it's a boy or it's a girl, I mean, it's just one more choice of the many, many choices you're already making.
But isn't the question of if you're going to, I mean, maybe it has to do with whether it rises to the level of a prohibition, but you wouldn't do something prohibited in order to, let's say you could, somebody was infertile, but the only way that their wife could have a boy and a girl was for the person to have an affair. So adultery would not be permissible, just to fulfill the mitzvah of having a boy and a girl.
Well, there's a specific prohibition in the Torah about that. So the Torah tells us that that's prohibited. So we can't make up prohibitions.
I guess
there's a very well-known case with that Ramosha when this IVF, when artificial insemination first was introduced, they asked Ramosha Feinstein, a woman who, let's say, her husband was infertile, and the woman who he was married to, she wanted to be fertilized from a different man in the laboratory. And Moshe Feinstein, it was like a very famous case, but I don't have all the details at the tip of my head. But initially he said there's no problem with that because in order to create a mom's error, this bastard child, there needs to be like the sexual act. And since this is going on in a laboratory, it's not an issue. But there was a huge uproar and he kind of retreated from that position. But we can't, just like we can't take something that's prohibited and say it's permitted, we should also be careful about taking things that are not prohibited and saying they're prohibited. That's the other problem. Hello, Eitan, you have the place? For chapter 22, verse 10. I mean, there's plenty of prohibitions on their own. Okay, so now, this is the next type of koyim. Lo tachrosh b'shor v'chamor. You're not allowed to plow an ox and a donkey. Hu adin l'kol shnei minim sheba'olam. This is lo tachrosh b'shor v'chamor yachlev. You can't plow an ox and a donkey together. You can't plow, Rashi says, any two different species in the world. V'hu adin l'hanhigam yachad kishurim zugim v'olachas shemasa. And it's the same thing for leading them together tied for transporting burdens. And the issue, someone pointed out, is that they go at different. I mean, this is the more logical one, and the others is that they are working at different levels, and it's hard for one to keep up with the other. One is much faster, one is much stronger, and it's not going to work simpatico. Then it says, Lo tobash shanes semer pishtim yachtav. You're not allowed to wear shatnes, which is wool and linen together. What's shatnes? She says, Lashon eruv. It means a mixture. That's what it means. Rabbi Senu Perishu Shua Tavoy Venuz. It's a contraction of the words carded, spun, or twined. These are the things that are prohibited. But, and here this is the irony, is from the next verse. Gedilim tasawach al arba kanfos kisutcha asher tachasaba. You're not allowed to wear these shatnes, which are these twisted threads of wool and linen, but you're required to twist the threads on the four corners of your garment. And Rashi says, and this is based upon the Torah, af minakoyim, even if those tzitzis strings come from the wool and linen, we're supposed to make them together. So the irony is you can't wear wool and linen except on your tzitzis. And that's why the pasuk puts them together. That's why the pasuk puts them together. Okay, so now we get up to the next law, which is the prohibition of defamation. Defamation is a very controversial topic in law. Would that be accurate, Dan?
Yeah.
Very controversial.
Absolutely.
Very, very different approaches to defamation in Europe versus in America. Very different. I cut you off, Alan. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I've been sued twice for defamation. In both cases, I found out that the truth is not a legal defense against defamation.
Yeah, I don't want to give legal advice, but
It depends.
yeah, I mean,
Some of it depends on the state, some of it depends if the person's private, right? So
if they're private
if
versus
the person is public, then truth is a defense.
Are we public?
If they're a public figure, if they're called a public figure, it's a term of art. They're a term of art. If you say something true about a public figure, it cannot be defamation. It's protected by the First Amendment.
Well, I did it.
But it was your neighbor, it was your name.
Yeah,
He's not a.
Did you win?
yeah, Ken Klein.
Baruch Hashem. All right, so we end on a good note that Alan Berger was not
Found liable.
found liable, but in England, Dan, let's just talk for 1 second. What's the major difference between England and United States about defamation?
Well, we have First Amendment age.
So therefore,
And so therefore, truth is not.
you have to prove that the burden of proof is on the one who said it. Where here in America, the burden of proof is on the one who's suing you. Yeah,
Allegedly it's been defamed, that's true.
which is a huge burden.
Huge issue.
And there's the most famous movie about
Deborah Lipstadt.
Deborah Lipstadt, and she was played by this famous movie star. What's her name?
Rachel Weisz.
Rachel Weisz, who's not Jewish.
Even though she sounds Jewish and looks Jewish, but she's not Jewish.
I don't know if she
And
looks
she did
Jewish.
a great job with Deborah Lipstadt's Queen's accent. I think this is someone who comes from Queens.
All right, it was called defamation. I don't know. Yeah, a great. I didn't see the movie, but I know Deborah. Okay, we'll stop here. Dama Mincha.